So I was having lunch with two friends last week, and they were talking about their letters, you know, ENTP and ISFJ, and I was feeling a little left out. I don't have 4 letters. Where are my letters? Do you have letters? Well, I ended up getting some letters, and you know what they are? Hi, my friends. So if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality types indicator, you can skip ahead to my results chapter. Just look at the description below and it will list those. If you're not, just stick around and we'll give you a quick refresher here. So Myers-Briggs comes from 2 women, Catherine Briggs and her daughter Isabel Myers, who back during the World War II time frame wanted to simplify Carl Jung's book, Psychological Types. And so they did that by creating an assessment which breaks down and puts people into one of 16 personality types. Now this is based on looking at 4 different categories or areas, and within each of those you have your choice of one of 2 attributes or types. And so with that we end up getting 16 combinations or 16 personality types. So the first category looks at extroversion versus introversion. I think this is one of the ones that's easiest to grasp. Now remember, introverts and extroverts aren't about being outgoing or being shy. It's about what recharges you. Where do you get your energy from? Is it from being around a lot of people and looking at everything going on? Or is it being by yourself and looking more internally? And so it's either an E or an I for that first letter. Now I should probably mention that these letters or attributes aren't about a skill per se. It's more about your kind of default condition. One of the extreme examples they use to kind of illustrate this is the idea that when we give a signature, we typically do that with our dominant hand. That doesn't mean I can't sign my name with my other hand. It just means that one's going to be more comfortable, less energy, more efficient, and just my default condition. So let's remember that. Also, in cases, some of these categories, you can have attributes of both sides of it. It's just a matter of which one do you default to or which one do you tend to lean towards the most. The second category is sensing versus intuition. And so this idea that with sensing, we get more of our ideas and thoughts and decision-making through facts and immediate experience, while intuition has to do more with the abstract and imagination, what we see as possibilities. And so with that, we're either an S or an N for our second letter. Our third category is thinking versus feeling. So for my Trekkie fans out there, think of Spock and Dr. McCoy. Both men of science, but Spock is the logical, the thinker, and McCoy, empathetic, feeling. So T or F for that third letter. And our last category or area is judging versus perceiving. Now, I'm not thrilled about the names because this isn't about judging other people or things of that nature. It's more about judging on the side of how we approach things, wanting to have schedules, more structure. We like plans, we like deadlines. Whereas on the other side, perceiving, we like flexibility. We want to be able to explore and check things out and not be hampered by deadlines and details. So J or P for our last letter. So again, we put this all together and we get 16 different personality types. Now some literature is going to wrap that up or group some of those, as you see here, which can be helpful for talking through and understanding them. So if you're wondering where I am today, I'm at Ketchumville State Forest up here in Newark Valley in Tioga County. So pretty cool little state forest here. Glenn, maybe you could give us some of the stats on this. Mix of conifers and hardwoods. There's one access road that comes in here and then I think 5 different little trails that loop off of this. So check it out sometime if you're in the area. Now, for each of those categories or areas, you can guess as to which side you are on. But the typical approach is you take an assessment. So Myers-Briggs is pretty clear about these aren't tests, these are assessments. Because tests imply that there's a right and wrong answer. And that's not the case here. So Myers-Briggs, that organization, I think it's $60 to do their test, or there's some other fee-based ones out there, or there's some free ones as well. In most of those cases, what you're going to be doing is going through 50 to 150 questions that are either or. Which of the following 2 statements describes you best? This or that. And you answer them, and it will spit out where you are in terms of those letters. Now, some of them also will give you the likelihood. They'll say, like, you know, they're very confident that you're an extrovert, or maybe just semi-certain about that. So again, it depends on the test, and we'll look at some of those results. So any guesses what my results are? I'll let you in on a secret. It depends. So the free assessment labeled me an ISFJ. So introversion, sensing, feeling, judging, which I can believe that kind of makes sense. The Myers-Briggs assessment was very similar, except it made me INFJ. So instead of sensing, it said I was intuitive. And I can see aspects of both of those. Now, I also got a third opinion. I do a fair amount with ChatGPT, so I asked ChatGPT, based on our interactions, what do you think I am? And ChatGPT said I was ENFJ. So the same as Myers-Briggs, except it thought I was an extrovert. Which, in fairness to ChatGPT, I could see that based on what we tend to talk about. Also, if you think about it, remember, introversion and extroversion is about how does one recharge? Well, ChatGPT doesn't experience that. You know, it can know about what people may say about recharging, but ChatGPT doesn't have to recharge, and so it has no real experience on that front. Your personality type can also vary based on things like your environment. Are you at home? Are you at work? Who are you with? And so we'll often see slight variations on those factors. The nice thing is none of these personality types are like narcissist or career criminal. In fact, you'll see them often described in very positive ways, and you'll see a few here depending on which of the 3 feedback mechanisms that I get the name of defender or advocate or protagonist, which are all sound, you know, fairly positive. So what do we do with these personality types? How can we use them? First, I need to say that some people have a lot of criticism for the Myers-Briggs approach. They think it's pseudoscience. They don't think it's adequate to really define the personalities. And to be fair, I got to believe there's more than 16 different personality types out there. We're just that varied. However, I've found it useful. The way I'm using it now is when I look at scenarios or replay certain events in my life, you know, as I approach self-awareness, I kind of apply this Myers-Briggs to that. And so I'll give you an example. So some of you know that I help with the Hiawatha Island tours. So part of that is me playing Gilligan on the boat, but when we're on the island, I help do the tour from a history perspective and a little bit of naturalist stuff thrown in there as I can. So I started looking at what's my personality like when I work that tour. Now, I enjoy it a lot. I have a blast, a group of people on a pontoon boat and then on an island exploring. It is fun. It's just a blast. However, I'll admit that when I'm done, I need a little me time. And that's kind of the introversion side of me in there. You know, not that I can't be outgoing and talk to all the people on the boat, but that's not what recharges me. And neither side of that is bad, right? Then if we look at either sensing or intuition, some of when I'm looking at the history of the island comes into play there. There are times where I'll go down the rabbit holes of dates and names and how big the boat was, how deep a well was. But then there's other times I'll look at the bigger picture. How did changes in the transportation industry affect visitors to the island? What was it like? What was it like for people to celebrate the centennial of the country with 1,000 other people on this island on the Susquehanna? Different things along those lines. So I get a little bit of the sensing and the intuition mixed in there. And then from a thinking, feeling perspective, I really do try to focus on the guests on the tour, trying to understand what interests them, what excites them. Is it really history? Is it nature? You know, maybe there's people that are really into trees, so we'll spend more time with certain trees or some of the cool trees that are out there. You know, whatever it is, I try to empathize with their thoughts and understand what would be interesting to them. And then finally, judging. So if you know me, I like schedules, I like my little, checklists and so forth. So when I do the tour, I have in my mind a set of places where we're going to stop and what we're going to talk about at each of those places. And what this analysis has done is I've started to look at, there are times where I almost kind of feel annoyed if somebody brings something up which isn't at that stop. Like if I intend to talk about that later on, don't bring it up now. And just trying to relax over that and realize that that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just my personality and their personality. And how do we make the best out of all that? So don't get caught up in the labels, but kind of use that to be more self-aware. Also, it's helped me look at the fact that other people aren't necessarily weird. They're just wired differently. And that's okay. So what are your 4 letters? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm really curious as to what personality types are part of our community here. Also, did you think my letters made sense? Let me know in the comments about that as well. Well, a shout out to my friends Jason and Tara, who were the ones that had the 4 letters at lunch. And thank all of you for being along with me here and talking about Myers-Briggs for a little while. Now remember, don't worry about the label so much. Just allow that to let you think about life a little bit more in a different way. I believe that no matter what your personality type is, you're unique and special, and I'm glad you're here. So have a great day, and we'll talk again soon. Bye now.
I know that it can be there someday. You've been waiting for. I know this life can be that one life you've been dreaming of. Today could be the someday. Today could be the one day. Today could be the someday you've been dreaming of.
Somebody's drumming.